And now it's time for our Capital Outlook profile this week, and it's with Senator Ogden Driskill. Senator, welcome first. And we are in just a beautiful place just outside the nation's first national monument.
Yeah, welcome to the Campstool Ranch. It's our old family ranch. It's been in the family for a little over 100 years now.
I'll ask you in just a little while if we had any aliens visit recently. but first, let's talk about your history. I've read in some biographies about your family that really the Driscoll family history started in Texas and worked its way up on the cattle trails to Wyoming.
It did. You know, prior to the Civil War, my three greats-grandfather was a storekeeper in Texas, and as the wild cattle herds became of value, he was one of the early entrepreneurs that started gathering cattle and trailing them north. And consequently, he and his brother-in-law, Jess Day, were some of the larger suppliers to both the Union and the Confederate armies during the Civil War, and became an honorary colonel. And then after the Civil War, started trailing cattle north into Ellsworth, Kansas, and then ultimately into Colorado and Wyoming, and late 1860s into Wyoming, and 1870s here when the Black Hills opened.
And I think I've read 1 million head or more.
Yeah, we probably, and it's not perfectly well documented, but almost without a doubt greater than 750,000 and probably closer to 1 million head. All in herds of 2,000 at a time.
Jeez.
So it's kind of interesting. The vision of these huge cattle herds wasn't Driscoll's. They tend to be small, compact herds with a handful of cowboys and a cook.
But you've had your presence in this part of the region. You were born in Belfouche. How long have you lived in Wyoming?
1970 was
most of your life
when we came out here. Yeah, all my adult life and most of my life. Although even when we were in South Dakota, we still had the ranch in Wyoming, and I've spent my life horseback. Actually, all our summers were spent at a place called Mosque. That's an abandoned town now. That was a land in the hills where we ran our cattle in the summertime.
And a graduate of Hewlett High School, a Red Devil.
Yeah, I was a Red Devil from Hewlett, and great school and a great town.
And some politics have been in your family. You ran for student council when you were in high school. How did that work?
I was actually, student council president in Hewlett. Didn't do so great at Boys State, which is another story that's fun. I'm probably the only kid that's ever flown to Boys State on with 15 helicopters. They were filming Close Encounters of the Third Kind on the ranch. And the helicopters at that point in time were under contract with Columbia Pictures, and they had to be flown so many hours a day. And when I told one of the pilots that I was going to Boys State, he offered to take the whole fleet because they were grounded for the day on the movie. So I actually got to fly with a fleet of helicopters and fly into the grounds at Douglas on a helicopter.
And that didn't help your election bids at Boys State,
It didn't get me there. It was a great time and made some good friends. And but no, the politics is old.
And you told me your parents were politically motivated.
Yeah, my mother went many years to state Republican convention, national conventions, and I grew up with politics. Dick Cheney and Malcolm Wallop and all the crew spent nights here when they were doing campaign stops in Crook County, and so kind of cut our teeth on politics, all of our family.
You chose to run for the House in 2004 and ultimately ran for the Senate in 2011. Yeah. What motivated you to get involved at the state level then?
I've been involved in community service for nearly all my life, and for myself, it was the want to help create a better Wyoming and leave a legacy for ourselves. Our family's always been pretty quiet about going about business, and I've always been kind of driven to try to be a piece to make the world a better place, so to say.
It's been interesting for you sometimes. The needs maybe in Crook County aren't the same as the needs in Albany County or Laramie County or Sweetwater County. To have that balance there, being now you're in leadership in the state legislature.
Yeah, I feel really blessed to be from this small a county and be trusted to go into leadership on it. And Crook County it's without a doubt, it's probably one of the more unique counties. Every county's got its own attributes. A friend of mine tells a story about Crook County I think holds pretty much true, and he says, in the United States, Wyoming's the most conservative state in the nation, and he said Crook County's the most conservative county in Wyoming, and Hewlett's the most conservative town in Crook County. And He said, "Where does that put you?" And it's really true. Is you represent really a down-to-earth, ultra-conservative crowd as a whole that are really pragmatically great people, but very conservative. Tight upbringings, close to ag, close to home, and family-oriented. And that's Cook County.
You spend a great deal of time at the KOA that's not far from here. That's another part of what you do now.
I do. I grew up, and as I got into the adulthood, ranching has been my dream all my life, and I came home and I leased the family ranch at a pretty exceedingly young age. I was in my 20s when I started running it. My father was gracious enough to allow my wife and I to lease the ranch, and we ran it, and it treated us well into the 2000s. And when Close Encounters was filmed, it was filmed on the ranch. Spielberg actually sat here in the living room here and cut the deal for Close Encounters of the Third Kind with my parents. And she took the money and built a campground on the film site. It was irrigated hay meadow, and she built the campground and operated it for most of her life. And my younger brother came home from the military, and he and his wife ran the KOA.
That's Matt.
That was Matt. Mm-hmm. And Matt was a dynamic person. Sad. A couple terms on state tourism board and was really well known. One of those guys everybody loved. And when he passed away, my wife and I took over the campground. And it's moved from being a pretty part-time for me to, I probably spend more than 2/3 of my time at the campground now. My son, Lincoln, is home and does most of the ranch work. I still get a breakaway. I got to spend yesterday raking all day for him. So.
Good. Ham and jam is a big deal in this area in Hewlett, but during that time, the campground's not quite as busy. That surprised me.
It isn't. It's really interesting. The campground is a family attraction, and basically we get all visiting families or tourists, and it's a big enough event that a huge part of the tourists choose to be somewhere else other than
Smart
Northeast
move.
Wyoming for that week. So
Yeah.
basically from Labor Day to Memorial Day, our campground runs close to 700 to 1,000 people a night. If you want to do a walk-in reservation, it's fairly easy. Ham and Jam Week's usually the easiest time to get it at the campground.
You've expressed some concerns recently about the future of cattle ranching. Are cattle ranchers going to survive in Wyoming?
They'll always be ranchers. The question is in what configuration and what way. And visiting early on, you look at the economics of it. This area traditionally, turn of the century, 70 to 100 cows made a living, and moving on, it went into several hundreds. Now we're into the thousands. So when you look right here at where the ranch is at, when I went to school in Hewlett, this bus route had around 30 kids on it. I think the same bus runs probably 4 or 5 kids now.
Wow.
These ranches have consolidated, and when our family came here, there was only a handful of big ranches in the county and a lot of smaller farm-type ranches. And we're back to a lot of big ranches in the county again. There's some really top-notch operators here that have got big against declining markets by being shrewd and running an economy of scale. And ranching's not fun. You know, my son here at home makes probably about the equivalent of a janitor in the high school for what he makes for a living. So it's not a lifestyle that you're going to do to take big trips or drive Cadillacs, but it probably is as close to a fairy tale living as you can find, as far as you get up every day and there's variety in the work that you do, and it's something new every day, and nobody's really your boss other than the banker as a whole. You've got to make the ends meet.
Couldn't be more rewarding.
It's truly rewarding. I tell people often on my life it's pretty close to a Walt Disney fairy tale.
So you serve Senate District 1 now.
I'm Senate District 1, and it's always been 1. I am, I think, the only senator in Wyoming's history that's served in 6 different counties. Wow. Because of the way the redistricting ran. When I was elected, I represented all of Crook County, all of Weston County, all of Niobrara County, part of Goshen and part of Platte, and or not Platte, but Goshen and Converse.
Okay.
And now I am in all of Crook, northern Western, and Campbell County. So I'm just in 3 counties now.
Still a large district.
It's still a big district and really diverse, interestingly enough. Probably easier to serve prior to redistricting. All 5 of those counties, 4 of them were in the bottom 5 of economics, almost no oil and gas, pretty much ranching. So they are pretty, even though it was diverse, I was a couple 100 miles north to south, pretty much all similar people. Moved me into Campbell County, and the contrast is, I think you're close to 80,000 annual wage in Campbell County,
Sure.
and in the 30s in Crook County.
Yeah.
So really 2 different subsets of groups, coal miners and people that work in oil and gas, as opposed once again to ag and otherwise, other than Crook County has 700 jobs that goes to Campbell County every day. That's some of our better jobs that we have in the county, as they drive every day either to a coal mine or to the oil field. So
Wyoming going to survive? Is the future bright?
I think the future's really bright. It's always tenuous. It doesn't matter what point you pick a history book up and you look at newspaper and news of the time. We tend to not see the bright spots. You rarely see, even in the middle of a boom, somebody saying it's peaches and cream. There's always the naysayer end of it. And I think our future's probably as bright as it's ever been.
And lastly, Senator, before you go, any aliens come your way?
Well, you might think they're aliens the way some of the people dress at times, but no, we haven't.
What's the question you get the most about Close Encounters with the Third Kind down at the campground? What do people want to know about?
Aliens. Did you meet Steven Spielberg or any of the actors?
The answer is yes to all of that, sure.
What was it like? And the answer is, we did get to meet all the actors. I was in high school. My best friend's father was superintendent of the park. Consequently, where they were leasing a chunk of our ranch for the filming, and his father controlled a lot of it, we got treated really well. And
Fun time for you?
Incredible fun time, and a great experience all the way around. We worked as extras and did a lot of things, and of course got to see a slice of how Hollywood runs, which in the 70s, pretty revealing for a young man.
How about that would have been a lot of fun to be in the middle of when it was happening.
It was.
Well, Senator, I'm sure we'll have a chance to visit with you during session. I can't thank you enough for letting us come to your beautiful ranch today.
Well, come again. It's a wonderful spot.
Oh boy, it sure is.
For anybody from Wyoming that hasn't been here, probably have you attest it's not the same on a postcard as it is in life.
That's absolutely true. And I think the surprising thing about driving here, you almost don't see it until you're here. Like the Tetons you see from 60, 70 miles away, and you get closer here, you almost got to be right here.
Well, back to that. That's the other question we get all the time is we're at the gates, and is it worth it to go in through the gates? And unequivocally, we tell all of them is you absolutely need to go up and walk around it, because the true Devil's Tower experience is not from the outside looking in. It's from the base of the tower looking out. Some of the most spectacular views are when you're standing at the base of the tower looking. The view's good in every direction.
It sure is. Thanks for joining us on this Capital Outlook Profile.